Hi there, sweet children of the body of Christ. I found a psalm that I would like to point out. It's 104. Um, in verse 2, it says, covering yourself with light as with a garment, stretching out the heavens like a curtain. And in some translations, it says tent. And so that word curtain is what is used in the book of Exodus when it is talking about the covering, when they cover the boards with the actual material. And so remember, we equated the laver with the firmament, the second day of creation, the heavens. And so again, everything kind of coincides. The laver, the book of is the book of Exodus, where the tabernacle is spoken of, or the tent, you might call it, the tent or the curtain. It says, stretching out the heavens like a curtain, who is laying the beams of his upper rooms in the waters, who is making thick clouds his chariot, etc. So I just found that the other day. I was in a service and they were reading Psalms 104. So I found that interesting to point that out to you. But there's other so many references. The glory, the heavens declare the glory of the Lord. And so at the laver again, we're talking about the second day of creation. We're talking about the second book of Torah, Exodus. And I also was going to point out a few other things that I kind of forgot to mention on the other recaps, but we're going to go through the teaching in detail later. But remember the laver was made from the mirrors of the women. And what does a mirror represent? More or less, it's vanity. And we also equated, remember, the laver with the second feast, annual feast, which is unleavened bread, the bread of sincerity and humility. So when the women gave up their mirrors for an offering to build the laver, you might see it as they were humbling themselves. And probably the fact that, they were now in the desert, and what use is the mirror to them anymore? I'm not sure, but they gave up the vanity, and so that represents the unleavened bread, the humility. And let's see, something else I also was going to mention that I forgot. Just a few little things. When we talked about the golden altar of incense and it representing the fifth day of creation, the fifth annual feast, etc., all the fives, the book of Deuteronomy, etc. And I think I said something about the fifth seal. It's um, the soul, nephesh, is where we find that on the fifth day of creation with the fowl and the reptilian or fish creatures, and so who's crying out underneath the altar? It says the souls were crying out underneath the gold altar. That's the fifth seal. It's the fifth furnishing. It's the fifth day. We have nephesh, soul. And also in Psalm 104, it talks about Leviathan. Let's see. Let me turn here. Verse 26, it talks about that Leviathan which you made to play there. It's talking about the sea, the great and wide, in which are innumerable swarms, living creatures, small with great. So again, remember we were talking about the fifth furnishing, the fifth annual feast. It's a new moon. It's complete darkness. And I told you it represents the spiritual realm, the angelic beings, like birds, the reptilian creatures from the waters, like Leviathan, the abyss. And we'll go through this in Revelation and make more connections in Revelations, and I'll have that video soon. Let's see. There's other things, but we'll touch on the rest of it. Something else I wanted to point out was that Leviticus is the book that the Jews teach their children first, and if you think about it, the table is the third furnishing. I told you that represents the third book of Torah, Leviticus, and it's the first furnishing in the tent. And so where would you be with your children but inside the house and teaching them at the table? And so you teach them Leviticus, not Genesis. Genesis is out in the outer court, and Exodus is in the outer court, but you teach them in the house at the table, the book of Leviticus. Thank you.